Here it is. This is the skimmer by Hayward. It has a lot of parts that go in the basket, which catches all your debris. There's a door that goes on the front here, guys. And then there's obviously a lid. And then a couple parts for the install, which are these here, right? Even a part for your hose attachment if you want to use a vacuum in here. Now, if you want to keep your existing 2 inlets, because you have 2 inlets on your pool, right? This will act as a 3rd inlet, basically. If you want to keep those 2 inlets, which I recommend, at least initially, just to see how everything works, there's a couple products you're going to need. And I have the actual cheapest products I could find on Amazon. I found parts on Amazon that were, I think, under 30 bucks for all of them. Just had to do a little digging. One is this adapter, okay? This adapter, basically, is going to replace this piece that comes with this. This piece was the original piece, and this screwed in there, and then you clamped a smaller hose on, which I don't like to do because clamps can fail all the time, and they're just a lot harder to remove when you have to. This piece here, it comes with Teflon tape. You actually get 2 of these. You can't really buy them singularly. The link's going to be in the description for all these pieces, including the Hayward skimmer. So you put the Teflon tape on the threads here and on the other threads when you're ready to install it. Then you're going to simply just screw that right in there, right? And what this is going to allow you to do, it's going to allow you to have the 1.5 inch, which is the bigger pool line that hooks up to your outlet on your pool, typically, the white ones, to install onto here. And it's also going to allow a plunger, which we also purchased. This is just a valve to turn this off when you need to install. See, it's going to allow this to install too. And you're going to just kind of screw that on here like so. See this here, guys? And I'm going to explain this, guys, before we get into the actual install, because it's important to understand how all this works. So that's your plunger, right? And that's basically, look, you can see it's a valve to turn this on and off whenever you need to, right? So now you have another 1.5 inch, which is the big line, right? So now you got all the big lines. So this can connect to this T. This is the last part. It's not going to get that complicated. So a line from here to this T, right? So this goes to the new skimmer. This goes to the pool pump, right? And this is going to go to your 2 old inlets that you're going to keep. Let's get into it now. I'm going to show you the setup. As you guys can see here, here's my setup. I got my 2 inlets here and one down there. See them from here maybe? Pool's kind of dirty. It's off season. Don't mind that. This here, this tube is 1.25 inches. Important to remember. These are 1.25 inches, the ones that clamp on. And these are 1.5 inches, the larger ones, right? So we got our plunger there, which is our valve. You can see that. Runs right into here, right? Right into the pool pump, right? So we want to put the skimmer here, right? So it'll be a straight run right down, basically. So nothing special here. We're just going to take a marker, I line this square up with the seam on the pool, and draw our outline. So basically, guys, we want to keep these for now, like I said earlier. And we want to have the skimmer here as an additional inlet, right? So we already made our mark inside. We kind of just went against the seam there. Now we're going to cut that mark. Don't be afraid to cut this. A lot of people are. It's really quite simple. If you just take your time and follow the lines, and you have a sharp blade, it's very important to have a sharp blade, you really have no problems. Don't worry about it. It's not going to be a problem. So I can't stress enough to use a sharp blade. Like I said, it's very important. Take your time because this footage is obviously sped up in here. And if you do cut into the wrong side a little, you could probably use some duct tape on both sides if you had to, because you're going to be sealing this from the inside out, so it should hold. Now, I know a lot of people online don't do it this way. They like to cut the hole afterwards. But the reason I like to cut it first is because the product that they give you is this this sealer here, this seal, and it's meshed together. As you can see, it's kind of glued together because they want it on the inside and outside. When you cut the hole afterwards, you gotta cut this thing in half, which a lot of people do, and then you gotta put 1/2 on each side. Seems a little messier, and it seems like it's not what the manufacturer recommends, and I always like to go with the manufacturer recommends. That being said, I think if you do it the other way because you're afraid to cut the hole first, you'll be fine. I don't think you're gonna have any problems. A lot of people online are doing it that way, and they seem like they're not having any problems. So we're gonna install this now, okay? So as you can see, I even had a little issue with the cut. I had to, retrim it in a couple spots just to get the seal to fit flush against the sides. Even after doing all that, you're not gonna see it in this video, but I did have a little leak, and I used this Flex Seal glue to kind of caulk around the outer edges, and it came out perfect and with no problem. Keep in mind, you want the 3 holes on the sides and the 5 holes on the top and bottom. That's the right configuration. All right, this is how this is going to fit here. So I'm using a screwdriver to kind of punch some of these holes in. Really wasn't the best choice of tools because it was a little blunt and made punching the holes far harder than it needed to be. If you guys have something a little sharper, I would definitely recommend it just to make it easier on yourselves and faster. So I got all the screws in with the plastic bezel on first, and then the screws are kind of holding it in place. And then I realized a huge mistake that I made that you guys will not have to make is that if you look at the screw heads, some of them are flat and some of them are rounded on top. I just realized this, and I realized that, I wanted all the different screws to match, and I'm sitting here looking at them now like, oh, what did I do? And I realized I have to take some of the screws out and swap them so that they're all either flat or either rounded, and I chose to go with the flat screws. Finally getting that part done, switching out the screws for all the same kind. This is what we're left with on the other side. And basically now we're just ready to put our skimmer on and screw these screws in nice and tight. So I decided to keep this part in, albeit on a higher speed. I initially used my screwdriver to line up the first few screws, and then once I thought everything was lined up, I used my impact driver. My impact driver was able to be set on a 1 speed, which really makes it less powerful. I didn't want to go too fast and possibly strip out the holes because they are made of plastic. So if you don't have a gun that can be adjusted, I just would use a screwdriver. For simplicity's sake and the fact that my gun was adjustable, I just went with the 1 setting. You can see here, everything looks nice and tight. The seal looks good. Look at that. I mean, that's definitely going to hold some water. If you want to run a bead of caulk, silicone around that, feel free to do so, just for any kind of, any kind of leaks you may get, who knows. But so far, so good, guys. All right, now that we made it this far, this is all installed, ready to go. We're just gonna need to attach this adapter so we can hook our 1.5-inch hose up to this, because right now it won't fit, as you can see, right? I already Teflon taped it like they recommend, and it's just gonna screw in pretty easily by hand. No tools really needed for this. Just get it kind of tight, snug it up good, right? Now that we've got that on there, instead of hooking the hose up, we're actually gonna hook the plunger up, because what we need, they call this a plunger because it's got a plunger like stop inside when you turn this. It's a plunger valve. So make sure your gasket's in there, and you're simply going to screw this on there. Same size as the 1.5-inch hose, but the reason you're going to do this is because you always want a valve to be able to turn the skimmer off if you need to for any reason. And it's good practice. You could just hook the hose right up to this if you really wanted to, but you'd have no way to turn this off. Now that we've got a plunger valve on this and a plunger valve over on the individual inlets that were original, we can turn them off independently. So if we just want the skimmer to get the full power and not have the inlets that are in the water submerged drawing any water in, we can do that. Vice versa, if we don't want the skimmer to be drawing off the top of the pool and we just want maybe inside the water, maybe it's a little cloudy and we feel like it'll get a better clean by these, which are submerged back here, we can do that, right guys? So now that we do that, we have our T hooked up halfway, right, to the 2 inlets. I'm gonna put the next gasket on here, right? And I'm basically just gonna grab a length of 1.5-inch hose. If you guys don't have any extra lengths of 1.5-inch hose, you are gonna need 2 of them. I think a lot of us who have these pools and have had them multiple times have some extra pieces. I'll put a link in the description for these because you're gonna need them. You can get them any length you need. So however far away you are from your pump, take that into consideration. I'm gonna install this here, guys. I'm gonna screw right on. If I can get this to stay put here. All right, let's see here. Now I'll use this side here. It's a little more pliable. All right. There we go. Now I got that, right? Now I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna run it this way, right onto the plunger, right? If I can get it lined up there. It's got a tight little suction seal. So I had to kind of muscle this on a little bit. It had a really tight fit. So you just had to wiggle back and forth. You could probably put something on there to lubricate it a little bit if you needed to, but it just takes a little time. For the final thing here, we're gonna grab our last gasket, and it's a little dirty. I'm gonna rinse this off in the pool. Get that in there, seat it, right? And we're gonna take our last 1.5-inch piece here, right? I'm gonna screw that on by hand, just as we did with all the other ones. If I can get this lined up right. All right, we got that. See that there? Nice tight seal. And this last one here is gonna just screw, if you can see here, into the actual pool pump, the filter, whatever you want to call it. I'm gonna try to do this one-handed while I show you. That's not gonna work. There we go. See that, guys? So I would definitely recommend getting some zip ties and cleaning all this up, which I'm gonna do later on. I'm gonna zip tie it to these poles and things like that and make it nice and pretty. But now I can show you the setup once and for all. Okay guys, I'm gonna go over the entire setup here so you know everything I had to do. I had to use some Flex Seal paste. The link's in the description for that. Like I said, this is the skimmer now, right? Now you got your valve hooked up, right? I just switched my valve out because mine was leaking right here, but it wasn't really due to anything wrong with the valve. It's just that I threw out the extra washer that was in there, and I shouldn't have did that. So I'm gonna grab a new washer online, and the flat washer in addition to the original washer. So here's the valve, and it goes to the 1.5-inch line to the T. The T then feeds the 2 original inlets that have their own shut off here, and then branch out into 1.25 inch smaller line that's clamped on, right? Then the T goes this way here, look, and it feeds right into the filter, the pump, and you're good to go. That's the entire setup. I hope this video helped you guys. Consider subscribing if it did. Thanks a lot.